Doing more damage is a pretty awesome feeling within a raid, and in this video I'm going to give 10 tips that I find really help me out when increasing the amount of damage that I do. Recently I've had a bit of a focus at being more skilled as a player, and this is essentially a summary of the steps that I've taken, and they really have paid off. It's been a lot of fun. Now, if you want some more generalized tips for raiding, then I already have a video on that which should provide a really good base. This one assumes that you already know about, say, interrupting things, your classes, mechanics, and all of those various other more basic points. Also, it is completely focused on a raiding perspective in normal and heroic mode. I don't do mythics personally, I wish I did, but essentially this is more for the organized raiding scene and maybe less for LFR. This is stuff that is completely overkill if you are doing LFRs and things like that only. Number 10. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to cover in this video is Ask Mr. Robot's combat infographics feature. I find that this is the single most powerful tool for improving one's performance. So go to askmrrobot.com and then load up your character. I use this site quite a lot, so mine's already sitting here in recent characters, but you can just enter your one manually if you need to. Then you'll be on this screen. You just want to click this orb and then click combat logs, which will bring you to this section. And here you can see all of the combat logs that are associated with your guild. Ideally, your raid leader should be uploading this, or just a designated person within your raid, and if nobody's doing that, well, talk to your raid leader and get them to do that or organize it, because it's basically extremely useful for just everyone improving themselves. So let's just click on tonight's raid, which I'm really just finished, and you can look at two things: the raw data, so the actual combat logs, or the infographic. I'm going to do the infographic because it just boils all the information down into a very easy to read sort of way. So I'm going to go and look at Throgar, and first I just want to look at the kill, because the kill's where you're going to find the really important data, and then I'll look at myself. So we've got loads and loads of different things down here where it breaks down so many elements of the fight. Overall, it's given me a score of 5.5 out of 10. That's mainly because of the way that it weights potion use. I forgot to use a potion, and I took a tad too much avoidable damage, so I do need to improve this stuff. But you can see already, this has highlighted some stuff that I can improve. Though what is good is my train score is very good, so I haven't been squished by the trains, and my damage is good. Looking on, we see other things. So here's the amount of damage that I did during the kill, 48,926 DPS, which I was happy to see was higher than most of the raid, apart from the shaman, because shamans are so good in this fight. Anyway, what I can then see is that this was a very high percentile damage parse, and the way this works with percentiles is that 50% is the median, so if you get a 50% score, it means you're bang on average, which likely means there's a lot of room for improvement, but similarly, you don't really have to worry that much. I would say that if you're 50 or just in and around 50 though, you should try to push it maybe to 60 or 70 and just, you know, give that bit extra effort. Now, what is more important is how good your damage is for your gear. This basically means that I was better than 83% of marksmanship hunters at item level 683. So that's a number that you really do want to try to increase and make really, really high, because it just means that you're doing good DPS for your gear, which generally means you're being quite skilled at it. So what I can see is DPS for me was pretty good on this fight. I used a lot of the tips that I'm going to cover in this guide to sort of tailor my play to the fight and really make the most out of it. But when we look at other things, not everything's perfect. In terms of potion use, I can see here that I forgot to use my combat potion, which was a DPS loss that was absolutely unnecessary. Now this is the avoidable damage section. I'm just going to click this to toggle everything off. Now let's look at, say, Reckless Smash. As you can see, I didn't even get hit by that, so that's a good thing. If you look at Throw Grenade, I didn't take that much damage from that either, which is good. If we look at the Delayed Siege Bomb though, I took 2 hits from that for a total of 250,000 damage. That wasn't needed, so next time I'll have to be better at dealing with that mechanic. And those bombs, I believe if you move correctly you can avoid them completely, so yeah, that's totally a thing I'll have to do. And with the Pulse Grenade, I took a total of 6 ticks, which was really too much. I remember I just stood in one for during a cast. It was very silly of me. So overall, looking at Throgar, I did pretty well, but there's definitely room for improvement. Let's hop on over to another fight, just for the sake of an example. We'll do Darmak, because I know there is one thing that I do have to improve in this fight, and I'll just click on the kill. So what can I see here? I was good at the potions, I never got pinned down, I did good damage, I dealt with Inferno Breath well, but there's some avoidable damage here that I really messed up. So looking through all this, yeah, the damage numbers are good, there's not really anything for me to worry about there, which again, I'm pretty happy with. But if we go down to avoidable damage, I'm pretty high, and that's really bad because it puts too much pressure on the healers. It's not acceptable. And what I see here is that if I just click on Rend and Tear, I took too much damage from Rend and Tear, which means that I wasn't very good at staying spread. I was moving into range of other people, which I just shouldn't have done. So now I know that the next time I go to Beastlord Darmok, I need to really watch out on how well I'm spreading out so that I don't cause unneeded raid damage, which is a really major problem. As much as DPS is important, failing on mechanics like this is not acceptable, and it's really something I'm going to have to pay attention to. But that's just a quick example of how you can use the Ask Mr. Robot combat infographics feature to quickly find out how you can improve your gameplay in your next raid. Generally, I'd say that over maybe a 2-month period, if you just analyze every raid and try to improve from week to week, using this tool, you're going to see a massive improvement in not that much time. Number 9. Next, I want to talk about creating an opening cast sequence macro for your rotation. That might all seem pretty complicated, but it's actually quite easy. So when you go into a pool, your class will generally have an opener, a sort of list of abilities that you need to do in a specific order so that you can get the most effectiveness. For an example, as a hunter, you generally want to, use Stampede, then use your own uses and things, then go into Bestial Wrath, Kill Command, etc. Now, that's a lot of buttons to hit in a very short period of time under normal circumstances. What you can do is create a thing called a cast sequence macro, and I'll throw up one of the basic ones that I use on the video for you. Essentially, you just want to find out what your opener is, so just take a look at a class guide, and then ensure that your cast sequence macro does that. Now, in case you are not aware, a cast sequence macro is a sort of interesting thing. If you had a list of 5 abilities or items in a cast sequence macro, then you would have to press the button 5 times, once for every single item on the list, so it essentially steps through whatever is there. That means that you can't put your entire opener on one button, then spam that button, and you will near perfectly execute your opener. I find that it's a really nice DPS optimization, and doing something like that at the very start of the fight is just super important, because that's when all your trinkets have procced, it's when heroism is on, and essentially it's like your biggest DPS moment. I mean, hell, there's times when I'm nearly peaking 100,000 DPS in the gear that I currently have, which is really good, and I noticed that as soon as I started using a cast sequence macro for my opener, my initial burst DPS was vastly improved, so it really is worth doing. Number 8. Next, you should set up weak auras or tell me when in order to track your various different cooldowns. This helps ensure that you, of course, don't forget to use them. It's a pretty simple point, but if you find that you often forget something has came off cooldown, it can be extremely useful. I'm just going to hop in game now and show you me very quickly configuring a tell me when bar. Okay, so here I am in game, and I'm just going to very quickly show you setting up a single thing in tell me when. So by default, you'll probably have one of these icon thingies floating around once you install the add-on. So I'm just going to right-click on one of them over here, and I'm going to select Spell Cooldown and type in Bestial Wrath. You can see it appears here under Suggestions. I'm just going to set it so that when it's usable, it's 100% opaque, and when it's unusable, it's invisible. That essentially means that whenever Bestial Wrath comes off cooldown, it's just going to pop up and tell me that, which is kind of useful, and that's the general principle of what you're going to be doing when you, when you're tracking your cooldowns with tell me when. So I'm just going to type in /tmw to get that to go away, and when I enter combat, you can see this stuff all appears. I just have it set up so it appears when I enter combat, and if I use Bestial Wrath, there, boom, they disappear. Number 7. Next, I'm going to talk about recording your fights. Now, when you record your fights, there's a whole bunch of things that you will want to look for. I'm going to cover those in later points in this guide, but for now, let's just talk about the act of actually recording your gameplay. So, since I do YouTube stuff, I record my kills anyway, but it's only recently that I started rewatching my kills with a notepad open. Basically, I just record any of the mistakes that I make, and I try to keep them in mind when I next raid. Often during a fight, we're so preoccupied with not getting everyone killed that we completely miss out on our own mistakes. and recording kills is actually just really easy to do. You can acquire Fraps or DX Tori, which are both very powerful bits of software, and there are also free alternatives like Open Broadcaster. Also, if you've got a Nvidia graphics card, you'll be able to use their Shadowplay feature to record gameplay. Just select one method and then Google a guide for it. There's loads of good help on the internet, and it's not particularly hard to do for any of those methods. The only issue that you might run into is that if you are on a less powerful machine, it may not be feasible. If that's the case, then just go through your combat infographics and check them out. Number 6. I suppose before I get into some of the actual gameplay things, I just want to mention the importance of having a critical mindset. This especially ties into the idea of watching back your own gameplay. And you probably noticed that I take a really self-critical mindset when it comes to getting better. Of course, don't get down on yourself, but I feel that self-criticism is a really important skill in World of Warcraft, and you often see these really self-important just douchebags who go around thinking they're they think they're the dog's bollocks when actually they're not particularly good. Hell, I think more people even need to just learn to be self-critical in their real life work. But yeah, when you look back at your gameplay videos or analyze your logs, honestly, try to tear into yourself and find out what is going wrong. Only by casting a really critical eye and working out what problems you have can you, well, start the road to actually fixing them. I think the notion of complacency also comes to mind. Being complacent is a great way to never improve, so just try to have that drive to get better. And yeah, focusing on our failings is not always the nicest thing, but trust me, there are few things that are more satisfying than improving oneself. And while World of Warcraft is obviously not the be-all, end-all of life, if it's something you're really into and you really enjoy raiding, then yeah, it's definitely worth taking that critical mindset and trying to improve. With that stuff covered though, let's talk about the more gameplay-focused things. Number 5. So first of all, you never want to cap your resources. This is a just fundamental tenet of being a DPS player. Never ever cap them. Every point of rage, energy, or focus equates to some damage, so if you have your energy bar capped, then you're basically just wasting any of the energy that you would be regenerating. Now this is of course common sense, but I really want to hammer it into your head because it's a mistake that we all naturally make quite a bit. Even if it's something as simple as accidentally hitting the wrong spell. Personally, I have this problem where I keep on hitting Cobra Shot when I don't need to, and then I end up capping resources, and it's a complete mistake on my part. Now, if something like this is a major issue for you, then I recommend spending some time in front of a target dummy, and perhaps getting a resource bar add-on for your class. This is certainly one of the things that you want to keep an eye out for when you're watching your own footage back. Number 4. Next, this is a simple point, but don't delay things. I catch myself sort of subconsciously doing this all the time throughout my gameplay. It's absolutely key that you don't delay anything that's high up on your class's priority list, which of course means that you absolutely need to know your class's priorities off by heart. For an example, a skilled hunter will never, ever delay a kill command. So that means that, over the duration of an entire fight, a skilled hunter will be casting more kill commands than an average hunter, meaning that they do more damage, and that applies to every single class in the game. So for an example, if you're an elemental shaman and you see that you're for some reason delaying your lava bolt thingies, well, then that's probably something you need to start trying to fix. Number 3. Another very important thing is thinking ahead and knowing the fight, and these two things really do go hand in hand. First of all, with your rotation, you always want to be a few steps ahead so that you are able to react to things in a very comfortable manner. Then, knowing the fight, especially in terms of timers and various things like that, is extremely important, and there's a great synergy between being a few steps ahead of your class and a few steps ahead of the fight. For an example, in Beastlord Darmak, a Hunter's Barrage has a cooldown which roughly matches Darmak's cooldown on Call Beast. That means you can do a just crazy amount of damage if you time those things up right. Another example is that with Gruul, you want to ensure that you don't pop your big cooldowns right before he petrifies, because guess what? He could petrify you, and your cooldown would be completely useless. Also in Gruul, if your class can't do damage on the move, then you may want to think a bit about your cooldown usage during his frenzy. Knowing your class and knowing the fight means that you can tailor your gameplay to the specific encounter and produce excellent results. I suppose you could think of it like your class's mechanics being a puzzle and the boss's mechanics being a puzzle, and if you can sort of slot those pieces of the puzzle together perfectly, then you'll just have fantastic results. Number 2. Next, another thing that you should probably do is track your trinkets. Tracking trinkets is a really important optimization if you're trying to squeeze out every bit of potential damage from your class. Add-ons such as Tell Me When, Extra, CD, and Weak Auras 2 can all accomplish this. Knowing when your trinkets are going to go off can be extremely useful. For an example, if your raid is using Heroism on the pool, then you'll want to work out when the best time is to use your combat potion, because obviously you'll pre-pot, Heroism will happen, and then after that, you'll have a potion that you can use at any time during the fight. Now, using it at the same time as you use, say, your class cooldowns is a really good thing to do, but it's even better if you can line things up such that you use both your class's cooldowns and your potion at the same time as your trinkets proc. The more things you can sort of overlap, then, the more the merrier. Often there is quite a bit of overlap between these various different things, and having an add-on to let you know when trinkets are active will let you take advantage of this. Doing this is just one of the many optimizations that you can do in order to sort of edge out over the competition. Another example is, maybe if you've got a massive cooldown, like say a Hunter's Stampede. Since we can normally only use it twice per fight, once in the pool and once during the encounter, probably towards the end, you want to make sure that you use it whenever your character is under as many buffs as possible. So if you've got a class cooldown that also lines up with a trinket proc, that's probably the best time to use your Stampede. Number 1. Next, if I'm quite honest, I'm out of points for individual things to improve your DPS, but there is a change that my raid recently made in terms of loot rules that we're really seeing great benefits from. We usually would just do the EPGP system, which personally I've never really liked, and we've recently changed to a really cool thing. So Ask Mr. Robot has got a new feature called the Team Optimizer, and essentially your raid leader, or whoever's doing master looting, will be able to load in your entire team based on armory data, and then the site will essentially tell them what bit of gear is the best upgrade for what player. That means that overall, you're getting the most effective use of the various bits of gear that drop, and unlike with EPGP, you can't really game the system. I think it's a really good way to improve the entire raid, and I just think it's better for getting progression kills. So I think the final point that I'm going to leave you with is just that. Have a bit of a chat with your raid leader and see if you can get a system like that going, because it's really been very successful in our guild. So there you have it. They are the 10 ways that I have been improving my DPS in raids. I really do hope you find this stuff useful, and I wish you the best of luck in your raiding career. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.